Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you're in the right place. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michelle Bomberger. Our guest today is Matt Heinz. Prolific author and nationally recognized award-winning blogger, Matt is the president and founder of Heinz Marketing, with 20 plus years of marketing, business development, and sales experience from a variety of organizations and industries. He's a dynamic speaker, memorable not only for his keen insight and humor, we're going to have to dive into some of that humor today, Matt, but his actionable and motivating takeaways. Matt was recently named one of the top sales world, top 50 keynote speakers. I didn't speak that out very well, Matt, but we're going to dive into that, I guarantee you. Matt's career focuses on consistently delivering measurable results with greater sales, revenue growth, product success, and customer loyalty. He has helped such organizations as Amazon, Seagate, Morgan Stanley, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and many others to create predictable, repeatable sales and marketing engines to fuel growth. Matt is a repeat winner of the top 50 most influential people in sales lead management and top 50 sales and marketing influencers. Matt, there seems to be a lot of 50s in this. For whatever reason, you've made a lot of top 50s. He renovated. This is kind of interesting, I think. He renovated his 105-year-old historic farmhouse in Kirkland, Washington, with his wife, Beth, and enjoys it with their 3 children, 2 dogs, 2 rabbits, 2 cats, and several chickens. I'm going to tell you, Matt, we've got a lot of potential plead the fifth. You're going to find out about plead the fifth in just a little bit.
All right.
But anyway, welcome to the show. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. You might say that we are ubiquitous. Now, listen, we're going to dive into this with Matt coming up. But before we do, Michelle Bomberger, welcome back to the show. It's been, I don't know, like a month?
About that, usually is. 30 days between these. It's good to see you.
Well, you know what? It's good to see me too, because I didn't know if we were going to actually be able to make this work. Michelle, Barb and I took a vacation. It feels like it's the first real, in air quotes, real vacation we've taken in a while. It was 8 days away from grandkids and dog and all of that. We went to Buffalo and Niagara Falls and had just a great time. When I got back, I found I had a staffing issue. My desktop, my iMac, which I use for, I don't know, everything, decided not to show up for work, didn't turn on. After an hour on the phone with Apple support and then a trip to the Genius Bar, I thought that I'd actually be bringing my employee home with me, but they're in the hospital. And so we're coming, not live stream this week. We are recording. I'm on my iPad, and the camera's in a different place, and all my stuff's in a different place. And I'm really trying my best to be resilient, Michelle. So I'm going to be leaning on you quite a bit.
Well, we are here with your resilience. We're going to make it happen. And so excited to have Matt on board with us today. I know him through Entrepreneurs Organization, as many of our guests are. And that's where I found so much resilience. You kind of go into this as an entrepreneur, and the world is, full of both opportunities and challenges. And just to kind of make it through, any given day, week, month, year, you never know what's coming next. And so the resilience of entrepreneurship is definitely, I think, a core of this show. And I think Matt's going to be a fantastic guest to have highlight that for us today.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because as entrepreneurs, marketing is really the lifeblood of, for any business in any industry, because that leads directly to sales, or at least it's supposed to. Matt, first of all, welcome to the show. What I want to ask you is this. I know that in good times, it feels like it's easier to market. When crises occur, when you have to be resilient, I think sometimes it's easy to put marketing on the back burner when in fact it might even be more important. Do you want to talk a little bit as we kind of get started with the show, talk a little bit about the importance of marketing all the time and being prepared to market in times of crisis?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, guys. I was really excited to do this with you. I think when Michelle talked about sort of the resilience needed for being an entrepreneur, I don't know if it's resilience, Michelle, or is it stubbornness? Is it bullheadedness? Maybe all be above, but
resilience just sounds a lot better. Just to let you know,
it sounds way better, but stubborn might be more accurate. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I think there's plenty of wasteful marketing that's out there, and I think that if you are an organization where you're like, well, when times are tough, maybe we should pull back on marketing, that tells me marketing is not really doing its job. Right. And there's too many companies and too many people that are still doing arts and crafts marketing where it's just for show. It's for vanity metrics. We're putting logos on pens and pretending that we're making a difference. To me, like, effective marketing is fully revenue responsible. It leads to metrics you can buy a beer with. And so, yeah, marketing can help you in the good times. It is even more important when things are tight. It's even more important to differentiate yourself, to hone your message, to make sure the right customers and prospects understand how they need you, and to fill that pipeline in a more predictable, repeatable way. Like, that is marketing's job, and is even more important and in the bad times to sort of, keep your business going.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed about the marketing community is how kind of close-knit it seems to be, especially in Seattle and maybe beyond. But something that I really admire, Matt, is your leadership in that community. And, Dan kind of rattled off the many, many, many accolades, which are, special in themselves. But over the last year, I've seen you communicate and contribute to the marketing community in a number of ways, as we have seen folks just, lay off sales and marketing as sort of a first cut. Can you share a little bit about kind of what drives you in that space and kind of how you found yourself as a leader there?
Well, I think it's just trying to do the right thing, to be honest. I think we're definitely driven by our purpose as a business. And I will say that I've been doing Heinz Marketing for 15 years. I always assumed that our purpose had to do with teaching clients how to drive more predictable pipeline through revenue responsible marketing. Turns out that's actually not our purpose. That's our niche. That's our niche. That's what we do. And so the purpose is like, why do we bother doing it? And so we, a couple of years ago, really sort of started to step back and say, like, what really drives us as a business and as leaders and as people. So our purpose today is to positively impact careers and lives by enabling work that matters. And it's in that order for a reason. The work that matters is important because if you're just doing arts and crafts marketing, like, that doesn't matter. It's not making an impact. I want work that matters. I want marketers driving business performance. And if marketers are driving business performance, they're strategic to the business, and that creates opportunity that impacts careers and lives. And I think when I think about the marketing community as a whole, over the last year and a half, the feds can say what they want. We've been in this little ghost recession since probably the middle of spring in 2022, and an awful lot of people have lost their jobs because companies that were too highly valued all of a sudden ran out of cash, or companies that needed to preserve their cash said, "We'll just dump our great people. We'll tell you we're a family until we need to let you go and save cash," right? And so there's been a lot of really good people that all of a sudden are looking for a job. And I don't know, like, when I think about positively impacting careers and lives, like, what can we do to support folks? What can we do to make connections to help people find other jobs? How can we help connect marketers with great new companies? So not something we necessarily get paid for, but I think is an important part of just giving back and being part of the community, is doing anything you can to help people get back on their feet.
Matt, first of all, I've never heard of arts and crafts marketing. I love it, and I think people understand and get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's interesting that whenever you see, professions lumped in, you see places that says sales and marketing, sales and marketing kind of have this marriage together with the and in between, but those are two specifically different functions, I think. And what I'd like to hear from you is maybe define for somebody listening that may think they're the same thing.
Well, there's jobs to be done, right? I mean, and ultimately, I think everything in the organization is focused on selling directly or indirectly. If you are in manufacturing, you are in selling because you are creating something that people are going to buy. If you're in product marketing, if you're in a planning organization, then you are in sales because you need to understand who the audience is, what their needs are to make sure we're manufacturing the right product. If you're in customer success, you are also in sales because your job is to make the customer successful, to make them happy, to make them want to continue to buy from you, continue to, buy new products and service, to renew, to expand, to evangelize that elsewhere. So I would argue that every part of the organization has a revenue function. Now, what do you call it, revenue or sales? Sales sometimes is thought of as sort of like the net new, and then if you're in a recurring revenue business, maybe then you've got an account management or a customer success or a product led team that is driving that ongoing lifetime value. But I think everybody has a role in directly contributing to sales and revenue. The sales department, and if you're just listening to this, I'm doing air quotes, sales department may be there when the deal gets signed, but that is a job to be done, an important job. But marketing has an important part of that job as well. For instance, let's say you've got a prospect who is just moseying along with whatever status quo. If you want any chance of selling them something, you have to change how they understand the status quo. You have to help them understand the cost of a problem that they did or didn't know that they have. Now, a salesperson can have that conversation one-on-one, but if you want to have it across a wide volume of people in an industry, well, now we're talking marketing. And it's not just clicks and likes. I could care less about vanity metrics. I want the right people at the right company at the right moment to understand that something needs to change, for the status quo to be challenged or loosened, and to eventually get to a commitment to change. And those are things that are happening before they know anything about the product or service you're selling. It's all about the problem. It's all about the problem that needs to get solved, the problem they did or didn't know that they have, and a commitment to change to solve something. That is marketing's job, is to get prospects to that point. From that point forward, okay, well, now I need to find a solution. I should evaluate different solutions. What should I buy from you? Should I buy from someone else? Now the job to be done, I think, is in many cases is what a salesperson can come and do. But to create the demand, to create consistent, repeatable, predictable demand in a sales situation, that is a prime directive of any good marketing team.
This is a great example of one of those times where it's really hard to be the host and the audience, because I just want to scribble notes as I listen to you talk. So I love the mission, the purpose that you mentioned, impacting careers and lives with work that matters. So you mentioned you started Heinz Marketing about 15 years ago. Talk to me about that, a little bit about that origin story.
Good,
Where did it come from, and why are you different?
Michelle, this has all been a giant mistake. So I studied political science and journalism at UW, go Huskies, and I wanted to be I wanted to do Woodward and Bernstein, right? I wanted to investigative journalism, right the wrongs of the world. Got my first job at the Bremerton Sun, a suburban Seattle newspaper, worked there for a little while, hated it, and took a job at a PR firm, and then downward spiral we go. And so I worked at a PR firm for a while, worked at Microsoft for a while, worked at a couple startups, and in November of 2008, if you will recall, the market was not in a good spot at that time. So the market is in the tank. My wife's pregnant with our first child. So I quit my job, gave up my benefits voluntarily, and hung up a shingle. So it didn't feel as scary at the time as it sounds now. I had one client already kind of signed. I had another that said, as soon as you quit, I'll sign. I had some continuity there, which was nice from an income standpoint. It literally, like, people think I'm joking when I say it was just me, a laptop, and a bus pass. No, that literally is what I had, and I just sort of grew from there. The hardest part was just stepping off the cliff and giving it a shot. I tell people all the time, there's 3 big things in my life that if I would have waited until I was ready, I wouldn't have done any of them. Is get married, have kids, start a business. Guys, I'm not ready for any of those now. So, I talk to a lot of people, especially in this market, who are between jobs, are like, should I start something? Like, well, do the math, talk to your partner, like, do it for the right reasons, but you're never going to have someone tell you it's all going to be safe. I remember interviewing, before I quit my job, I remember interviewing people who had started and run small professional services firms to kind of get their origin story. And what I realized after a while, I was looking for someone to tell me it was going to be safe. I was looking for someone to give me the roadmap that was going to be fail safe. Shockingly, no one had that for me. But what I heard and the way that those stories were shared and sort of what their experiences sort of meant to me, it helped give me confidence to go out and try to do it on my own.
I love that story, and I love that you kind of compared becoming an entrepreneur to getting married and having kids, all of that, because all of those are fraught with peril, but the
Uh,
but the joy and the reward of all of them are great. By the way, Matt, before we go to commercial break, I don't remember when were you at the Bremerton Sun, because it's now the Kitsap Sun,
oh, is
and
it? Okay.
I'm a columnist there. I've been writing columns for the Kitsap Sun for 13 years. In fact, one's coming up due. I better write it. So when were
This
you at
is
the
back in
Kitsap Sun?
1998.
Oh boy! All right. Well, that was so funny when you said that. Listen, we've got to go pay the bills, so we are going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest Matt Heinz for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to see what Matt thinks about content creation. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. The power of law is often used against those who don't know what they don't know. But not anymore. Equinox levels the field for entrepreneurs. Just as your business may now tap into a managed service provider for accounting, HR, or IT help, you can now tap into the power of law with Equinox. Equinox's strategic legal counsel service gives your business the same strategic law advantages as the megacorps. But unlike the mega attorneys, Equinox brings a balance of strategic business and practical legal guidance. You set the priorities in the budget. The Equinox team builds a personalized plan at a fixed monthly cost to best serve your legal priorities and needs. Take on business complexities with the power of law on your team. Visit equinoxbusinesslaw.com. Schedule a complimentary no obligation evaluation to see where your business stands. Level the playing field with Equinox Strategic Legal Counsel.
Well, hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin, and our guest today is Matt Heinz. Let's start our next segment, Hot or Not.
Okay, Matt, as you might guess, Michelle and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about starting a business. Who knows? We may throw in a whole bunch of crazy things. You're going to tell us whether it's hot or not, and then why or why not. Matt, I'm an avid golfer. I watch a lot of what are now called content creators in the golf world. I know content creators live all over, but I got to believe that there's a need for content creating for your business as well. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Hot or not, content creation for small businesses.
Oh, very, very hot. I think no matter what you do in your business, if you think of yourselves as a media business, you're doing it right. To think about how you can actually earn and retain eyeballs and the attention of your prospects by creating content that's valuable to them, that doesn't just sell them, but educates them and compels them to come back. You don't want to be interruptive. Your job is to be irresistible so that you are creating owned land. The last thing you want to do is have to rely on someone else's attention from your target prospects, and that's going to charge you a premium. That is rented land. By thinking of your business as a media company and you create content that compels people to come, that's owned land, that's an asset. Now you have a direct audience that you can market to and sell to moving forward.
All right, one step further, AI in marketing.
Hot, with a caveat. I think it's, we are still in such early days of understanding what AI is going to do. For those of, I don't know how old everybody is listening to this thing, but if you remember the mid 90s, the internet wasn't websites. It was like Gopher, right? Like the University of Minnesota had a series of files you could go access. People had traffic cones saying my website's under construction over at GeoCities. Like that's where we're at now with AI. I think it's still a little bit of the Wild West. I don't know anyone that really has an AI strategy because I don't think we're really there yet, but it is coming and coming fast. And I think right now, the ability for AI to do a lot of manual work, to do a lot of tedious work, to do a lot of repetitious work on your behalf. Writer's block is extinct. You never have to write the crappy first draft ever again. Now, if you go ask ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other systems to write something for you, they're going to give you a C- copy. We still need artists and craftspeople to go and make that compelling. But it is a huge advantage for those that are leaning in on it today. And I would say if you're scared of it, you're going to fall behind and it's going to get worse. So just lean in, give it a shot, assume it can do anything until it can't. And I guarantee you'll be hooked.
And I love the caveat, the keep your eye on it too, right? So ultimately, us coming from the legal field, we've got a bunch of really scared people, and it's like, it's not taking over the judgment, it's taking over the workhorse piece.
Yeah.
Of it.
Hey, jobs and tasks, man. Like my dad did marketing for Caterpillar 40 years ago. Like the way he did marketing was different than I did at the beginning of my career, and certainly is different today. The tasks of marketing have changed significantly. The job of marketing has remained remarkably consistent. And thank goodness we have advances in technology that take a lot of the hard work, the busy work. He used to bring home like papers under his arm. Like that was his inbox, right? It wasn't something he could type out. He had to handwrite stuff. He didn't have revision marks in Word. He had a red pencil to like make marks on copy, then had to send it back and hope it would get done in the next 2 or 3 days, not 2 or 3 minutes. So think about how technology is involved in a way that we take for granted today, but that also gives us significant advantages in terms of efficiency and effectiveness to be able to spend more time on the things that we are best positioned to do. That is where AI is going to accelerate our success, our creativity, and our input, and our results.
And I of course, I've been busy writing notes or two, or at least I should be. So I forgot the question I was going to ask, but I got really excited about what you said because, I do a lot of writing, and that whole writer's block, and sometimes getting started, it used to be I'd have to pour myself another cup of coffee. Now I can just I can ask AI to at least help me get started, and it really works well. I love that. So here's a question I had before the break that I didn't get to ask. So I'm gonna dive into it here. So many small businesses, Matt. You talked about the marketing department and the sales department. They are a combined marketing and sales department. You're talking about businesses that have maybe between 1 and 15 employees. For those small business owners who need to try to find a way to balance and merge all of that together, what advice do you have for them?
The simplest things you can do is start to keep a paper trail of what you think and stay in contact with the people you come across. Early in my career, my entire network were people I worked with and people I used to work with. That was it. And I knew that if I eventually wanted to go out on my own, especially as a consultant where my job is to talk and type, I needed to know more people. So I started just meeting people through the course of work, like, following up, catching their email address, initially just sort of putting it into Outlook, and eventually using a tool like LinkedIn to stay in touch, to follow them, to see what they're talking about. Actively managing your growing network is a great way to find opportunities to get more referrals and word of mouth. I mean, we grew to 13 and a half years of business growth before I hired my first salesperson, because we were able to leverage that network effect. I also think capturing how you think about things just needs to become a habit. If a customer asks you a question, when you write back or respond to that answer, it's an answer to them in a blog post for your website, right? If you aren't a writer, then that's fine. Do a podcast like this, do a video. So I have a face for radio. So I don't do a lot of video yet, but I'm a print journalist by trade. And so I do a lot of written content, and I've trained myself just to think about talking to customers, talking to prospects, hearing what they talk about, what they think about, making a note and saying that could be something, that could be something, that could be something. So in the course of your day, what you're thinking about, what you're doing, how you respond to customers and prospects, think of that as potential content that could have more eyeballs than just 1 or 2 people directly, and you start to build some momentum. Honestly, this is just about having a checklist and being consistent about following certain habits over time.
Well, I am so grateful because it was, I think, a couple days ago, your LinkedIn post finally shared the secret to your thought leadership, what I consider your thought leadership success on LinkedIn. I follow Matt, and every day there's something that I take away from it. And a lot of it is marketing. Much, much more of it is leadership and the thought leadership that you bring. And so a couple days ago, I think it was, you put out there similar to what you just shared, which is, keep track of these ideas. And, I think you also mentioned that you block time and batch them and do it all, in different blocks of time. You don't sit down every morning for 45 minutes and think about what you're going to say next. And I love your kitty behind you, by the way.
I'm just glad she didn't bring a present in with her. Sometimes she would bring in a little treat for us. So yeah, mouth is empty today. That's good.
Yeah. So, I don't know I'm curious as to how you have found the audience's response to how vulnerable, transparent, and how somewhat disconnected it is to what you do every day as a marketer, in your thought leadership, because I find it inspiring.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I think I don't know, the older I get, the more mistakes I make. I just feel like there's a lot of sort of false optimism. There's a lot of false I think people just put on a face about who they want other people to think they are. And I think we're all very vulnerable people. I co-run a CMO community that's a bunch of some of the smartest, most successful marketers I know in B2B, and 10 out of 10 have imposter syndrome. Like 10 out of 10, think they don't deserve the success they have. 10 out of 10 are worried they're going to get found out. 10 out of 10 are trying to get the work done and trying to be successful, also trying to hold their family together and trying to create some me time so that they actually pay attention to themselves and their health and well-being as well. So I just think like I'm going through some of that as well. I got 3 kids that I'm trying to like raise without like steering them the wrong direction. I got a business I'm trying to steer through the ghost recession, trying to take care of myself along the way as well. And I had a really great business coach, honestly, that I kept talking about this. And she says, you got to write about this. She's like, it's just, it's what I still write about marketing and about sales and about pipeline. But as we grow our team, like I used to write every day on our company blog. I haven't written on our company blog in forever. So I've got my own podcast. I've got my LinkedIn content. So if you need some of the best B2B marketing advice, like our consultants got you handled. For me, as I've gone from being in the business to working on the business, those issues of leadership, those issues of vulnerability, those issues of how to create a good culture, how to live a purpose that's beyond just the work we do. Like I spent a lot more time thinking about that. And I was a little nervous sort of stepping out and having those kind of conversations in my content. But I've found that it resonates. I mean, every once in a while, I'll get a note from someone that's, having a bad day, bad month, bad year. And they're like, it's just nice to hear someone else is dealing with that. I talked to a company gal last week, running a small marketing agency that's, having a challenging year like many of us are. And she's like, I don't know who to talk to. And you mentioned something that seems to indicate that you're open to this. And so we had a phone call and I opened up and just let her know. She's like, it is so lonely. It is so lonely not knowing who to talk to and looking around and thinking that everyone else is sort of strutting their stuff and saying that they're doing fine when they probably aren't, but they're not willing to admit it. And how do you have a conversation with them about that? So I don't know, like I don't think there's a downside to being vulnerable in that way if it's authentic and can help other people.
Matt, I have so many questions for you. We're gonna run out of time. We may have to have you back. As always, Michelle brings incredible guests, and I've got so much to ask you. But I'm going to ask you this, and I think it's a good question at this point. Somebody might be listening or watching, saying, "How do I hire him? How do I hire Matt? Who is who is your ideal client at this stage? From an employee size, a revenue size, an industry type." Who are the businesses hiring Heinz Marketing, and what is it that you do for them?
I appreciate you asking. I think, 15 years ago, it was like, do you have money? What do you need done? And so I think what we've honed it to is, we are really, really good in the team. And look, like I said, like I am not, they don't let me work on client stuff anymore. I just run the business. We are really good at building predictable pipeline in complex sales situations. The longer the sales cycle, the more complex the sales cycle, the better, because it typically means you can't just run a Google ad and get a lead and close it tomorrow. Like it's months, if not quarters of sales cycle length. There's 8 to 10 plus people involved in the buy side, deciding whether this is a priority, building consensus around a commitment to change. Your ability as a selling organization, sales, marketing, all along the way, to coordinate that behavior, to coordinate momentum building and consensus building inside the organization takes more than just campaigns and salespeople on the phone. It takes a real coordinated, systematic effort across your message, across your campaigns, across your systems and technology, and all of your processes and playbooks to do that successfully and to do it consistently. Because if you don't do that, you end up with a lumpiness in the pipeline. You end up with random acts of marketing, and you might stumble into a decent month or quarter, but what's your confidence that you can do that again in a predictable way next month, next quarter? So that's what we do, strategy project playbooks, to help companies with complex sales cycles create more predictable outcomes. And we are project-based consultants that really want to work our way out of a job. Like, we're very focused on creating client independence. We want to teach companies how to do this internally. The companies we work with are typically in growth and scale phase and want this to be part of their DNA and part of their discipline of how they build predictable pipeline moving forward. So when we work our way out of a job, it means we've got a client that can do this on their own, and that is a win.
Hey, Michelle, do you mind if I ask a follow-up? Actually, it's another question because I may forget it. Can I bump into your time here a little bit?
Go ahead.
Okay. So Matt, I think about this came into my mind, newsletters and ways that people are reaching out. I've been doing the same newsletter now. I think I'm nearing 800. So I've been doing it forever, and I see how many people open and read and all of that. I'm just thinking of how I now consume content, and it's less and less newsletters because it feels like my inbox just continually grows. Is our newsletters dying, or is it still about how people consume content, and you have to have a balance across video and newsletters and social media and all of that? I'm just trying to think of the small business owner who's trying to reach people. Where are newsletters in the mix?
I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to start with take a step back on this. Like, sales and marketing today is like driving by someone's house at 35 miles an hour and trying to throw something in the mailbox. Right? It's just, you got a lot of stuff flying at the house and most of it misses. And every once in a while you get something in the mailbox. Now, when your prospect goes to the mailbox and opens it up and they see something from you, what's going to get it inside? What's going to keep it from being thrown in the recycle bin before they even get inside? Is it a sales pitch? Is it a hard pitch? Is it something valuable? Is it something interesting that you had to say? And that may compel them the next time they check and they see your logo or see your brand. They're like, oh, I remember last time that was good. Maybe I should pay attention to this, right? And then they start recognizing your car as they drive by. They may not check the mailbox every day, but they recognize the car as you go by. And I don't mean that to be in a stalker kind of way. But my point back to newsletters is that they start to seek out your content. They start to recognize your content as better than the rest of the drivel that they see coming across. And even if they don't open your newsletter, that is a brand impression. When they see your brand, your name in their inbox, they may not have time to read every one of them, but every one of those is a positive impression that builds trust and credibility with that prospect. So when you do that then across a newsletter, whatever you might do in social media, whatever you might do in a podcast, when you show up in someone else's content in their sphere of influence, that all builds in a body of work format to help you out. And if you're doing a newsletter, I would argue, like, some people treat it as an actual separate newsletter. Just take the content you're creating everywhere else and aggregate it into one place. If you create a blog post and you put that out there, a very small percent of your target is reading it, right? Even the people that are on your newsletter list probably didn't read it. So repurpose it into a newsletter so it's just highlighting the stuff you've already done, right? Knowing that the majority of people aren't going to open it, the majority of people aren't going to read it, but they may see your car driving by. And that may remind them, you know what? I didn't open and read that newsletter, but boy, I remember I do have a need. I need to call them, right? Or the next time you get in front of them, see them on the street, see them at a show where your salespeople call them, like, thank God you called, because I've been meaning to call you. I have this need, yada, 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 right? Top of mind, interruptive versus irresistible. Like, flip that narrative and stand out. Like, we all complain about how much email we get, yet we spend more time in our inboxes than ever before. So email remains a steady, consistent, successful tool in the marketer's toolbox, but you have to stand out.
Well, and we have to stand out here in just a second because we have to take a second short break to thank our corporate sponsors. When we come back with our guest, Matt Heinz, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to ask Matt to jump into the DeLorean. We're going to take him back to the future. He'll be looking forward to it. So should you. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Hey, we're back at the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin and with Matt Heinz of Heinz Marketing. We're going to kick off our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
Okay, Matt, and it's always dangerous to do a plead the fifth section when Michelle's here because you can't ask her for any help. She's asking the difficult questions. But what we're going to do is we're going to pepper you with more questions, and we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. You can plead the fifth if you don't want to answer it, but you can only plead the fifth once. So be careful how you answer. Okay, Matt, we're going to put you in the DeLorean. We're going to take you back to whenever it was that you were 18 years old, graduating from high school, about to embark on whatever career you thought you were going to do, maybe in political science or world. What advice, without messing up the time continuum, what advice would you give an 18-year-old Matt today, knowing what you know?
I'd start early at building your network, building a network of people that know you, build a network of people that you have helped, that have helped you, that you've interacted with. Stay in touch with those people. It's not about putting them on a list. It's about sort of really engaging and, feeding and growing and sort of nurturing that list over time. And you never know who you're going to need or what you're going to need. You never know who you're going to be able to help. You never know who's going to be able to help you. But it's kind of like putting money away for retirement. It compounds. And the earlier you invest in those relationships, the earlier you invest in those networks, the compounding impact and ROI is going to work in your favor.
I'm going to switch gears back to the beginning. So when Dan read out the family members that you have out in Redmond and Kirkland, who's the animal lover?
Well, it's all of us at this point. I grew up with cats. We have a couple cats. Definitely would consider myself a dog person now. So we have 2 dogs. It was not my idea initially to get chickens, but we do now have 7 chickens, down from 17. That's a whole nother story. But I think we all have become just animal fans. I mean, Beth and the kids watch a lot of Animal Planet documentaries. We spend a lot of time down in San Diego and always go to the San Diego Zoo, which is one of the best zoos in the country. So I think, we're all animal people for sure.
Well,
Anything
Matt,
coming up next? I was going to ask just any other plans? Goats, horses?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. So I would love to have a couple Nigerian pygmy goats. You kind of move the fence around and just they eat everything, right? I've talked to my wife about potentially having a pig. The problem with the beauty of having a pig is you can raise your own food. Like we do a lot of barbecue, but then you name the pig and then you have to do the pig. So like that's not good. Also, pigs are mean. Pigs are very not nice animals. And so they look cute, but like the hogs you would raise to sort of grow food, not nice animals. So I don't know. I think I've thought about maybe quail, like doing quail because quail eggs are delicious and wonderful. Had someone talk me out of getting ducks because they're not mean, but they're disgusting and very dirty. So I don't know, maybe dogs and chickens. Maybe we should just stay there.
I love it.
all right, Matt, you're in a 105-year-old farmhouse. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, plead the fifth, because I've got to believe there's one here. Plead the fifth. What is the craziest remodel, renovation, fix that you've had to do in your farmhouse since you've been there?
Well, we've taken down a lot of original walls and ceilings and found a lot of interesting things in the walls. We found what may have been hidden bottles of hooch at some point where the hooch is long since evaporated. A lot of animal artifacts in a lot of different places, that's for sure. Nothing too crazy other than that. It's just at a house that old, people are like, oh, you're done working on the house. Like, you're never, as 105 years old, there's always something going on here. There's always something you're working on or fixing, but like we enjoy it. I mean, I talk and type for a living. And so to be able to sort of work with my hands and work on calluses on the weekend is actually pretty enjoyable.
All right. So this might be a segue. It might not be. I don't know. If you had to take a hobby and turn it into a business, what business would that be?
So I don't even know if you know this, Michelle, but earlier this year I bought a distillery. It's a defunct distillery on Whidbey Island in Washington. It's been around for 13 years. It was started by a pharmacist, a retired pharmacist from Walgreens, who now wants to be retired. So no longer produces, and no longer have a facility to produce. But that's a real thing that I'm just trying to get up and running again. Make a really good gin, one of the best gins I've ever had. They make out there, just all handcrafted. So I've dabbled with some of my own whiskey making here in smaller volumes, but excited to try it and get something out of the market.
It just continues. First of all, we like whiskey together. I grew up on Whidbey Island, and you buy a distillery on Whidbey Island. We're both Huskies, and you worked at the same place. So we're going to have to get together for a libation here at some point. So I'm going to keep this train going on the. You and I get together, we're going to have a libation together, and you go into your private reserve, air quotes for you got a private reserve maybe somewhere under lock and key. Yeah. What are you serving me?
Well, if we're going for the top, we're gonna pull out some Pappy Van Winkle. We're gonna do maybe a 25 year Pappy Van Winkle, which is the white whale of whiskey now. I think almost every bottle is in Vegas, but we see it out in the wild every once in a while. I would say that, other than Pappy, like I really like a good Blanton's. Blanton's neat. It's the kind of spherical bottle with the little horses on top, and there's like 7 different versions of that top. And if you string them together, it looks like the horse is galloping. So kind of a nice little gimmick, but the bourbon is fantastic. So anything made by the Buffalo Trace distillery, to be honest, that's where the Pappy Van Winkle is made now. Buffalo
I didn't know
Trace,
that. I just learned something new. I know Buffalo Trace, but I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's a great book about the grandson of Pappy Van Winkle who's still alive, who still makes it, and he looked forever to figure out where he was going to make it again, and he said the Buffalo Trace distillery was the only one that had the craftsmanship and the skill and the facilities to produce his stuff. So both Weller and Pappy Van Winkle are both produced at Buffalo Trace.
I learned recently, we've hosted a bourbon gathering at my house a couple of times. My husband is a collector, wouldn't call himself an expert, but a collector and knowledgeable. And so we've done this for a couple of auctions and had people over and kind of pulled out some things to do some comparative testing like you would do in a winery. Mm-hmm. And I learned this most recent time about the horses on the Blantons, but also that there are 2 different ends and there's an apostrophe. So to get the whole set.
Oh.
So anyway.
I didn't know there was an apostrophe.
Yeah.
Right. So that's good.
So keep hunting. As I understand, they're pretty hard to come by.
Yes. Yeah. I think it might be like the McDonald's Monopoly game where there's a couple of them that are like everywhere and there's a couple that are literally impossible to find. That's my theory.
It's a good theory. I know that you are a voracious reader. I've seen a lot of your posts. What would you say is one of the more impactful business books that, every business owner should at least spend a little bit of time on?
Oh, I mean, if you're a business owner, I think the E-Myth by Michael Gerber is a good one. E often stands for electronic. In his case, it's the Entrepreneur Myth, which, based on what he wrote, is the idea that if you are really good at something, you can run a business for it. Hey, you make great cookies. You should open a bakery. Like, there's so much more to running a bakery than just being good at baking cookies, right? And so he kind of walks through that. I think that's a really important book. I would say the Challenger Sale and the Challenger Customer, those are good sales books, good marketing books, but just good in terms of sort of also product marketing and understanding your market, and what you're selling is not necessarily the product or service, it's the outcome that represents. I think that's really important. One of my favorite marketing books of all time is called Scientific Advertising. It was written by Claude Hopkins in 1921. So it's 102 years old and still super relevant for marketers, copywriters, anyone that has to communicate today.
Nice.
So Matt, this could be my final question. We've got some small business owners, entrepreneurs, hopefully listening on this. Plead the fifth. What is the biggest mistake small business owners are making, or maybe not doing, or not doing enough of? What is the biggest mistake they're making when it comes to marketing?
I think it's assuming that volume and eyeballs means good marketing. I think too many companies sort of worship at the altar of the marketing of more clicks, more likes, more impressions, more views. Like, more is not better. Better is better. The better you can define who your target market is and understand the subset of your target market that are your real buyers, that are people that you are better at serving than anyone else in the world, that's who you create content for. That's who you want coming to your site. So I run a marketing consulting firm, but we focus on B2B, not B2C. We focus on companies with complex sales cycles, not transactional sales cycles. So if you're doing like quick sale transactional work, I may not be the best person for you to read. Like, I'm writing for those that have complex systems, complex sales teams, long sales cycles. And so it takes some courage to go and focus more narrowly, because you feel like you're leaving out other sales opportunities. But the more narrowly you focus, the more specifically you can say, I'm the best in the world at this. I'm at the best in the world at serving this audience. The more it makes those customers attracted to you, not sort of anybody who does full service, which is master of all, master of none.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. I remember that from kind of my first marketing class, the idea that, niching feels like you're just like leaving out so much. You're like, okay, if you had, I don't know, 10% of the addressable market, you had plenty of business. It's probably okay.
Yeah. And this is, I see this a lot when people get worried about competitors and they say, oh, competitors coming up, or like Google's coming into our business. Like, someone could be the low cost leader, but that's probably not what most companies want to be, right? And so, if you find the right market, if you narrow in on who's your best target, I mean, there's plenty of business to go around. Yeah, I think that people focus too much on competitors and not enough on servicing the customer and understanding the customer and pivoting when the customer pivots, so you're more relevant. I mean, like in this ghost economy or this ghost recession, if your customers are no longer prioritizing 4 nice to haves, they're prioritizing 2 need to haves. What are those 2? Do you have anything that can help them with those 2? It could be that your addressable market has itself pivoted or shifted in this time. A different segment of your market might be more apt to buy from you in this market than in a sugar rush economy. So it's worth keeping your eye on that, and that will always do you well versus worrying about what your competitors do or don't do.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you or learn more about Heinz Marketing, how can they get more information?
We're just at heinzmarketing.com. I got 15 years of content up there, tons of research, best practice guides, blog posts. We've got 360 episodes of our podcast, Sales Pipeline Radio, all up there for free. It's a great library. If you need a librarian to find something interesting that you're specifically interested in, just come to me, Matt, M-A-T-T, at heinzmarketing.com. Would be happy to help anybody.
Fantastic. I can't wait to check it out. And for all of our listeners, check out the replays of our show at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, or wherever you get your podcasts, from iHeart, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and follow our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Matt, first of all, thank you very much. I think what we're going to have to do at some point is get together for that bourbon. It does not have to be Pappy Van Winkle's. We can get together and talk about Michael Penix and the Huskies over a Blanton's or something. But I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. Thank you very much for being on the show today. Great stuff. Michelle, as always, it's great to see you. Thanks for your contributions today. Everyone, you can do exactly what Michelle said. Like us on our Facebook page. That's where you'll find us normally live streaming. When I get my iMac back, we'll be doing that, I promise. But in the meantime, look, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, follow the show. Our next show will be on Wednesday, October 4th. Craig Swanson will be my co-host. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.